Hello everyone, welcome back to my series, Tradigital Tutorials. During this episode, I will be covering two different styles of animation, straight ahead and pose to pose. These two terms refer to the different styles that animators use when creating a scene. Throughout this series, you may have noticed me using both styles depending on the movement. Pose to pose means creating at least two keyframes, the most extreme points of the movement in an action. If you are animating a walk cycle, these keyframes would be when each foot comes into contact with the ground. After establishing keyframes, you fill in the gaps by adding in-betweens. You connect the poses of the movement together in order to make the motion more fluid. And after adding your in-betweens, the movement becomes more clearly readable. Pose to pose is very useful when you have a very specific movement in mind. If you're animating a basic walk cycle, you would want it to be predictable instead of spontaneous. Pose to pose also allows you to keep the volume and model of an object consistent throughout the scene, and helps to make sure that the timing remains consistent. If you draw each frame without knowing where it's going to end up, the timing may be thrown off, or your model could break and change shape, resulting in a very different looking object or character at the beginning and end of the scene. In order to demonstrate pose to pose, I'll be animating a slow walk cycle. In a slower walk cycle, there are more frames, and it can be difficult to make sure that the character keeps his shape throughout it. We start this animation by creating the keyframes. In the walk cycle, these are the frames where both feet are on the ground and spread away from each other. After setting these keyframes, we can add in the breakdowns. Breakdowns are a type of in-between frame that help you describe the movement. In a walk cycle, the breakdown is when the two legs pass each other and both arms are straight down. After adding the breakdowns, we connect all of the movement together with multiple in-between drawings between each key pose and breakdown. And after adding those in-betweens, here's our final product. The next style of animation, straight ahead, refers to animating without a specific plan in mind. In straight ahead animation, there is only one initial keyframe, and then the animator literally works straight ahead, animating one frame and then the next. This style of animation is particularly useful when you're animating something unpredictable, such as fire or particles. If something is supposed to be spontaneous, then straight-ahead animation may be the preferred method. In order to demonstrate straight-ahead animation, I'll be creating an animation of fire. When we begin, we only put down an initial keyframe. Then, we begin to build on it by slightly changing it after each frame. I have some flames flicker upwards and then break off and disperse pretty randomly. I'm not too worried about where the flame will eventually end up, so I'm allowed to be a little bit more free with the way I create the fire. Although I animated this in straight ahead, I did go back and add the initial keyframe to the end so that it would loop properly. However, the movement itself feels more fluid because I animated using straight ahead and did not have a specific plan for the fire in my mind. After adding some color to the animation, here's our final product. In both pose to pose and straight ahead animation, I would recommend doing some research or finding a reference for the object that you're going to animate. It can be very helpful to understand the way something moves before immediately trying to animate it. In fact, when creating Tarzan, the animator spent time visiting zoos, attended lectures on primates, and took a 2-week safari to Kenya in order to research how the gorillas moved before animating them in the film. Although you may be animating in straight ahead, understanding how something moves in general before can be a very useful tool. Thank you everybody for watching this video, and before I go, I would like to direct you towards Howard Wimser's video on starting an animation project, where he breaks down his process on what he does before he animates a scene.